Are we rolling? Okay. Hey, look. Well, hello, fellow birders. Today, we're going to dedicate this episode to those of you who, like me, live somewhere near the middle of the continent where things pretty well freeze solid each and every winter. What do you do when you're tired of watching those blue jays and chickadees at your bird feeder? Well, if you're like me, you go looking for weird water and goofy grain. Now, I'll come back to the grain in a moment, but right now, I'm here at some prime weird water. This is Lake Wabamun in Alberta. There are 3 coal-fired power plants on this lake, and the warm water that those plants produce keeps a lot of the lake open. Thousands of ducks stay here all winter. They don't bother to migrate, and in turn, they attract birds of prey. So, my guest today is a bird of prey specialist, a raptor biologist, Gord Court. You might remember him from one of our last episodes. And who knows what Gord and I are going to find on this expedition for weird water and goofy grain. For this episode, we traveled around Alberta, Canada, but the basic principles of weird water and goofy grain apply throughout the snow zone of continental North America. The first stop for Gord and I was a large grain terminal where grain attracts rock doves, pigeons, which in turn attract falcons. A few days earlier, Gord was scouting this spot with a home video camera, and he got great looks at a huge adult gyrfalcon that caught and ate a pigeon right beside a major freeway near the terminal. As well as a prairie falcon hunting doves off the terminal as if it were a sandstone cliff. Today, however, both of these big husky raptors were elsewhere, but we did eventually spot a female merlin falcon perched on a high corner being buffeted around by the wind. Her eyes were on the pigeons, and these powerful small falcons regularly kill pigeons twice their body weight. In slow motion, you can see that the merlin is a falcon through and through, tucking and stooping in a dive so fast, few birds ever see it coming. Next, we checked out the Wabamun power plant, which was devoid of raptors, but did serve up a passing raven. Ravens aren't technically considered raptors, although they do soar, and they do kill and eat meat. Here, this one had found the carcass of a common goldeneye duck on the edge of the open water. Goldeneye find the power plant's intake and output canals much to their liking, and even in midwinter the boldly patterned males, when they aren't taking underwater meals, are courting the more brownish females. There seemed to be a lot of competition among the males for the females, and chases are happening all the time on the canals. The females must be impressed by their sleek black heads, bright white cheek patches, and brilliant yellow eyes. Body postures are also important to these ducks, and you'll see them stretch their necks, throw their heads over their backs, and perform a variety of displays for one another. It's a beautiful bird to watch anytime, and especially in midwinter. So this is emerald shiner bay. Apparently more emerald shiner minnows in here per cubic meter of water than you can shake a hooded merganser at.
Well, I'll take your word for it.
Usually a good spot for hooded mergansers. Not today.
Sure, well, we just saw the little group there, but it was a long ways off. Had to get them in the scope. But
yeah, when they're that far away, it's not really worth pushing the issue.
Sure, no, a lot more shy than I thought they would be.
Yeah,
they were on their way as soon as they saw us, I think.
I've been here with my high 8 video camera. I got a little bit of tape of some birds closer to the opposite shore there. It's so nice when the male is flaring that hood.
Yeah.
And
even this time of year?
Oh, beautiful birds,
right.
Beautiful birds. Nice crisp plumage. Usually a mountain bird that winters on the coast. Really kind of weird to see them here in this weird water.
Sure is.
Yeah. I got some, speaking of high 8 tape, I also got tape of a gyrfalcon just down the road here, sitting on a fence post, looking out into the fog over the cooling pond, waiting for some duck to come a little too close, I guess.
Sure, a lot of the birders for years, the birders in Edmonton have come out here, and they're usually pretty successful at picking one up. Want to winter anyway, but...
The king of the falcon. Moves me just thinking of it.
I moved.
All right.
I was moved by the shiner, so.
Don't you find that your arms get tired when you're holding your binoculars up for prolonged periods of time? Well, I've got the solution for you. Why not do what the Finnish birders do and attach your binoculars to a monopod? I've heard this referred to as a fin stick. And all you have to do is, set the binoculars up, focus them, and then you can hold the stick down in a comfortable low position and scan the fields at will, looking for things like rough-legged hawks. Has a fairly nerdy look to it, but it is very comfortable. You can also extend, but before I tell you about extending the monopod, this little gizmo that attaches your binoculars to the monopod, before you write me a letter and ask me where to get one, the answer is a good camera store. Not that I don't want to get your letters, I'm always happy to get letters, but I find that all you have to do is show a piece of equipment on television and everybody wonders where you get it. Anyway, if you extend the monopod, you'll want to check this in the store. I didn't. If you're a tall guy like me, you'll want one that's slightly longer than this. Otherwise, you have to get into some birding stances to use it correctly. Nothing out there, but my arms are not tired. The fin stick. Okay, well, we made our way west to the mountains. The sun is just coming up, and we had to stop here at Gap Lake. The water stays open, at least part of the water stays open on this small lake every winter, all winter, and there must be a spring feeding into the lake here. I don't know what the deal is, but that's my theory, and I don't know, why bother thinking any further than good theory? Anyway, we've got some goldeneye ducks out there, and we're hoping that they're mostly common goldeneye. We're hoping there might be Barrows. Have you found a Barrows gold?
Sure, we used a scope here, and there's a really beautiful Drake goldeneye, Barrows goldeneye right to the left there.
Left to the right or right to the left?
Left to the left.
Okay, gotcha. Over to the left.
Yep.
Oh, you're right. Lovely, just on his own, a little bit darker at a distance.
Sure, a couple of buffleheads right behind him there.
Distant ducks, but they still count. That's all right.
Sure. Did you see the mallards rising off that railroad?
Oh, coming up by the trestle there. Now, I wonder if, well, you know what I'll bet is happening. There's probably some spilled grain on the tracks.
Sure, there must be. I think I saw a couple of pigeons come with a flock of ducks there, so I'm sure there's something on the tracks.
The two basic themes: weird water, goofy grain.
Sure.
Can't get away from them. We had some snow buntings come by here too. They could be after either one.
They may have been on the tracks themselves as well.
Well, you know what we might do now is move back out of the mountains into the foothills and look for rough-legged hawks, something like that.
Sure. I hate to admit it bias, but there's raptors.
Oh, I know. It's hard to get this Gord guy excited about the ducks.
Raptors and raptor food. That's just the two groups.
The two basic, the breakdown of bird classification?
Yeah, sorry.
Raptor food, raptors. Well, makes it simpler. Good beginner's rule. Let's go give it a try.
Sure, okay.
All right. Along the valley of the Bow River, Gord and I stopped for a moment to identify a group of common mergansers chasing small fish in an icy riffle. We were on our way to some sandstone cliffs where I had often seen prairie falcons in the past. Rock doves use these cliffs the way they use buildings, hence their official name, and these ones were declivity soaring, using the updraft off the rock face. This raven was doing the same, and although it isn't a true raptor, this is what we were watching for. A continual parade of birds gliding effortlessly along the ridge, scanning for prey. I don't know, I feel like a lot of birders miss out on the fact that you can hang around in a bird's habitat and learn a lot about the bird even if you never do see the bird itself.
Sure, this is a perfect example. A nice sandstone ridge with quite an aspect here. You can look out and see what they're interested in. There's a nice piece of native prairie here, probably full of Richard's ground squirrel in the summer. That's a key species for feeding when they're feeding young or when they're breeding. That you won't have one without the other generally in Alberta.
No
anyway.
kidding. I always thought of them as more of a bird-eating falcon. They'll take the ground squirrels too?
Oh yeah, I think birds are something they pick up a lot more in the winter, and certainly they take a lot of ducks and some passerines in the winter. But
how do they get the ground squirrels?
Oh, in summer it's a really. I've only seen one really successful flight, but I've seen several attempts. But usually it's a very low and fast descent, and they come peeling right over the prairie. And if there's a ground squirrel looking the wrong way, he'll be airborne shortly. Yeah.
Oh, is that right? So because they stand up on the back legs, looking out for predators.
Yeah, and all you'll see is his tail and legs go.
No kidding.
And gone, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we could come back here in June, see that very sight down below us.
Sure. Well, the number of perch points here that are heavily whitewashed indicates that this was probably used maybe even as recently as last summer.
Ah, well. We'll catch up to them sooner or later.
Sure.
No
Keep our eyes
problem.
peeled.
Oh, yeah. The Policeman's Creek in the town of Canmore is a natural bit of weird water fed by a spring all year. Mallard ducks overwinter here in the hundreds, much to the delight of residents and visitors alike. And if you had to pick one duck to be the common species, you could hardly choose a better looking species than the mallard. But it wasn't the mallards we were really after, and Gord soon spotted a winter rarity, a male belted kingfisher. Dependent on shallow open water for fishing, these birds almost always fly south for the winter, and it's always a pleasure when one can survive this far north all year. The following morning it was warm enough for snow fleas, tiny collembolan insects that disperse over the surface of the snow by means of leaps propelled by a lever on the underside of their body. A few hours later, however, a Chinook wind had blown across the province and temperatures plummeted 25 or more degrees Celsius. We found ourselves staring out across a frozen stubble field at one of the very few snowy owls we'd seen all winter. Every year is different for snowies, and this year we suspected that most birds had migrated even further south, to the delight of American birders, no doubt. Even our most common owl, the great horned, was not particularly common this winter, so I took a moment to glass this one, typical of the pale grayish birds we see in the northern plains. Isn't this a lovely little woodland spring? I come here every winter at least once to look for overwintering robins and dark-eyed juncos. They seem to need the open water. And even though I've been kind of hard on people and their bird lists lately, I must admit there are some sorts of lists that I find really quite interesting to keep and quite useful. One of them is a winter list. It's a list of all the birds I see every year from the beginning of December to the end of February in around the area where I live. Usually about 50 or 60 species, and it forces me every year to get out and reconnect with those 50 or 60 species And it's kind of neat because you get a feeling for which are the regulars and where to find them. You get a feeling for which species are coming down from the north in good numbers in a particular winter, eruptive species as we call them. And you also get a feeling for which ones are truly unusual and the real rarities. So, not all bird lists are bad, and a winter list, in my opinion, is not a bad idea. Since we weren't finding many wild raptors, we stopped for a visit with some falconers, friends of Gord's, and a short falconry demonstration. Sometimes called a highly contrived form of bird watching, falconry has strong ties to falcon conservation, and I was impressed by these men and their devotion to the birds, both wild and trained. This peregrine was being flown after farm pigeons, which proved to be more athletic than I ever imagined. What you can't see on the screen is the fact that the pigeon has taken refuge in the back of the truck we are all using for a windbreak.
I can see that coming. I'm gonna lose my damn hat. Look out.
Even diving from a limited height, you can get a feel for the grace and power of the peregrine, and those lucky few who have seen them stoop from 1,000 feet up will tell you there's no sight like it in the world of birding. But let's leave the falconry behind and return to our next bit of adventure, which was ironically right back in town with one of the most sought-after raptors of them all. Okay, Gord, well, it seems that the northern hawk owl eruption this winter consists of one bird that just happens to land right outside your office building.
Yeah, really convenient.
What's the deal here?
Yeah, well, one of the veterinarians called up the other day and said they had a hawk owl working the deer pens just in the north side of the building here.
For mice?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have a little pile of grain there and some deer pellets, and there's been a small mouse or vole explosion in the back there, and this hawk owl's been working the pens daily.
Super. Well, a lot of these birds, I guess, come in underweight and they're kind of on the verge of starvation.
Sure. Well, about 3/4 of the young ones, or 3/4 of the birds that we see on the prairies here in the winter are hatchier birds, and a good 2/3 of all young hawk owls will probably be dead before the first birthday. So it's a tough time of year, especially in this really cold weather. This is when they're going to buy it if they do.
Oh yeah. Well, I went out the day after the Christmas bird count to try to relocate a boreal owl down in White Mud Creek and found the thing just head down in the snow. It had died overnight. Yeah. So they're pushing the edge.
Oh yeah, and they just run out of gas, and they'll sit on the same perch for 2 or 3 days on end and then just teeter right off. And I had a great horned owl do that this winter as well.
But this critter's looking good, and it's the birders around town have taken to feeding it mice too, haven't they?
Yeah, well, it's pretty unusual to have a hawk owl right in an urban center here, and some people want a better look at them or feel they should give it a try. We'll throw a mouse and they'll usually take them, and philosophically it's no different to me than feeding peanuts to blue jays. So it's something
pick up the mice as if you're going to feed your pet snake at the pet store. Yeah. Well, I imagine it's probably been the difference between life and death for this particular bird.
Well, it may well be, and to have him right in the center of town like this, fairly unusual, and he probably was a bird that was pretty hungry. Yeah.
Well, do you want to put a band on this bird and get some measurements?
Yeah, if we get an opportunity, we just pick them up. It's sort of a routine thing, and if we get them, we'll band him and send him on his way.
With all those insulating feathers, we didn't notice that the bird had already been banded, in fact by our old friend Ray Cromie. Luring it in with a mouse, Gord had no trouble netting the owl. And he's an expert at handling birds of prey. With frozen fingers and very cold instruments, Gord took the standard wing and tail measurements while I wrote down the data. This turned out to be a male bird, probably in its first winter.
236.
A very patient bird as well. Up close, the most impressive aspect of this bird was its talons. Strong, well-feathered, and armed with needle-sharp claws. We weighed the bird in a padded sling and found out later that it had been banded only a week ago when it weighed 200 grams, only 2/3 of normal, and on the verge of starvation. In 7 days, however, it was up to over 300 grams, thanks to all the free mice. To show that he didn't mind the physical, the owl followed us for the rest of the morning, hoping for handouts and giving our cameraman some excellent opportunities. Since these pictures were taken, over 700 people have come to see this owl, some from as far away as Arizona and New York. This may not look like a long list, but for this part of the world and at this time of year, we were pleased. And the northern hawk owl was a great addition to our grand total roster. Pretty good. Hey, the light's fading. Just about time to quit. We got a golden eagle.
Not bad effort.
Excellent. Excellent. Boy, it's getting cool out though. I'm glad about that though, because after our show last year where we really froze, I bought this nice hat and I was really looking forward to an opportunity to wear it. Now,
you got your chance.
I got my chance. I'm comfortable. I'm feeling sorry for you with that baseball cap.
Well, don't take it to Trinidad, I'm telling you that.
Yeah, Trinidad. That's going to be our next show. I think though before we sign off, we should mention the fact that if you're going to do this kind of thing, going looking for raptors in the prairies in the winter, you got to have some basic raptor optimism, don't you?
That's a big part of it, I think.
Right? We drove, 1,000 kilometers last time. We're at about 2,000 this time. We've only seen about 24 birds.
Sure. Well, we got scooped by the temperature last time, and this time I think it's the wind. A lot of these raptors we were expecting, like rough-legged hawk and snowy owl, all of them were not on big posts. They were on the ground, and they're a lot harder to see when they're down low like that.
Oh yeah, so. Sometimes right in the cover of vegetation, and you're not going to see them at all. But no, there's some key phrases you should memorize if you're going to try this at home. Things like, this looks like good habitat.
This should be right around the corner.
Right around the corner. Saw one here last week. That's right. A good one.
All stories about ones you've seen there before don't go well.
And pointing at particular posts, like there was one on that fence post, that very post, gyrfalcon.
Yeah, that's right.
White phase, nice one. Male. So yeah, we'll be doing that in Trinidad. Hardly wait. Sorry you can't come.
Yeah, well.
Should be good though. God, great habitat for raptors,
Yeah, you may see a few really unusual ones there. Good luck to you anyway.
Bat falcons around every corner.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time, happy birding.
Hey, look. Frostbite. Look at that nose. Zoom in on that nose. That's frostbite happening there. Shake hands with danger. That's a frozen nose. time it was crows and boogers. Now.